So beautiful. I've decided to risk walking outside because it's beautiful out here. And if you're wondering why I am not immediately talking about my topic, it's because I'm going live on Facebook, and it takes a while for the live to firstly show up and then to be shared by my beloved husband, who's inside, out into the groups so that anybody who wants to join live can do so. So while we're waiting for that, I like to take a little tour around my garden and show you some of the stuff that's going on. So hopefully the connection will hold up. And there is some pretty stuff out here, and as you can see, it's bright and sunny. There's the sun, boom. But let me show you the garden. So it's very definitely summer. So we have some wee roses. This one, oh look here, I mean there are always weeds. Trust me, I come in here and tidy up. There's a weed. But this is snow carpet. And I mean the roses are doing little bits and pieces now. Hi Charlotte, great to see you. So this is kind of the tail end of the rose season, but I still love this. Let me get really close. You can see they're really sweet little flowers, and they're kind of creamy yellow in the centre, which is also nice. And what have we got here? A few late roses on the iceberg, which I never get tired of the iceberg. It's just gorgeous. It's waving in the wind. Can you hear the cicadas? It's just beautiful. And we still have these brightly coloured pelargoniums. They're getting towards the end. I've got to cut more of them down because they get leggy, right? So you got to cut them down so they come back again. And don't go past the foliage, which is actually pretty gorgeous. I really enjoy that. And probably the star of the show is this new import. It just came from across the fence, but look at that. Isn't it fabulous? It wasn't thriving at all in the sunshine on the other side of the fence, but it likes it here in the shade. And look at that orange. It's a bright, bright red, and the centre is orange, and it is a fuchsia. But it's, I don't know, it's a different one that likes shade, but it's it's not a normal one like you used to. And we have some big spikes coming up on, this is the compassion rose, which I have to stake. Because I got away with the last gale, but I won't get away with the next one. Because there'll be flowers and they'll just get broken. And I don't want that. And look, here's my other favourite fuchsia. This is a dangly one of the sort that people are more accustomed to. And, I mean, look at it. I just love this. It's very elegant. We have some Japanese anemones, which I have to keep throwing washing water on because they do dry out. This is probably a better way to see them. So that's why they're a little bit sort of collapsy. And look, we have lots of flowers that I can get up close and really show you the loculia. See the detail? The little squirrely bits. I'll see if I can get a decent focus on this one. There, now you can see. It's just a beautiful flower. I don't know, I think I did look up, but I've forgotten where this thing comes from. But I don't know, maybe China or somewhere that's definitely not New Zealand, but isn't it fabulous? I just love this plant. It's, you know, if I show you, you can see that I keep pruning it. See, there's just been pruned. You have to do that because it just goes up. And unless you prune it, see, you cut it and then it goes sideways. And if you don't do that, you just end up with a really tall, leggy thing. And, yeah, that doesn't work. So, look at the leaves. I love them. The whole thing is very luxurious. Alicia, it's great to see you, sweetie. We're just doing the garden tour. And clearly the video is being shared out, which is great. I'll just show you a few more things that I had in mind. The dahlias. There are some fresh flowers out. I wanted you to see this one. It's a bit nibbled, but look at the colour. Isn't that fabulous? I don't think the flowers even don't get nibbled. There's something that's discovered the dahlias and just said, I like this. This is dinner. But I'm just going to walk through the garden here. Just show you a couple of others. Conveniently in my own shade. Look at that. Isn't it glorious? I love dahlias. And one more. then we'll go inside. This one's got a little hole in it. But they're just so perfect. I really enjoy them. So there you go. It's summer. The garden isn't quite as lush as it is in spring, and that's normal. And I have deadheading to do, but look at the sky. Isn't that just beautiful? All right, let's go inside and I will talk about the topic. Get to it. G'day, Melanie. It is great to see you coming in outside out of the sun. It was cold this morning. I mean, you know, and if you're in the States, it's winter, and I've got nothing to complain about because 13 degrees centigrade above zero is not cold. But when you've been in 21 or 22 or 23 degrees centigrade above zero, and then you drop suddenly to 13, it seems cold. So now I'm inside. I'm going to put this, I'm going to install myself in front of my laptop where I have this little stand that I can put my phone, and hopefully not have it fall over. That was the phone nearly falling over. And here I am. And I have my little pad that's got my notes on it because I'm excited. I got to write today and not be all disrupted and distracted. The technical problems I had last week, I did manage to mostly resolve. It was very time consuming. It was difficult. But sometimes stuff happens. And I had so many opportunities to choose. Am I going to get angry? Am I going to get frustrated? Am I going to get desperate? And am I going to decide that this is never going to get sorted or not? And I had to make those choices over and over again. Because, yeah, there were all kinds of emotional addictions going on for me. So, today, I'm excited because I'm actually starting to write about, in my very simple way, the mechanisms of emotional addiction. What the hell is that? Well, an addiction, right? And I'm borrowing Joe Dispenza's definition because I like it so much. It's really simple. He says, an addiction is anything you can't stop. Doesn't matter what it is, if it's eating chocolate, if it's feeling depressed, if it's complaining, if it's feeling happy, if it's running all the time because you get hooked on the endorphins. Anything that you can't stop, you know, it's like, again, this is another one of his stories. You know, if you're really pissed off at somebody because they did something to you a month ago and you're still really angry at them, and it's a really good reason, you're allowed to be angry, you've got a really good reason to be pissed at that person. They did something a month ago and you're still angry. And if I walk up to you and say, look, just stop being angry now. And if you're not addicted to that emotion, you'll be able to stop. You will. But because your body's become accustomed to that and the feeling of self-righteousness and the energy that you get from being angry, for example, no, but I have all these reasons to be angry. This is why I'm angry. And you retell the story, I retell the story, and I reaffirm it again, and then I get the chemistry again. So that an emotional addiction, you know, if you have a relationship that you know is bad for you, but you just can't get out of it, or you get out of it and you come back, there is some element to that relationship that is addictive. Or if you keep getting the same, you know, you get a new job and you think this is going to be better, I'm not going to have the same crappy boss, or I'm not going to have the same arguments with co-workers, and then it happens again and again and again, something in us is creating the same thing over and over again because we are addicted to it. And I do not mean consciously. We do not go around seeking shit in our lives. But what I have really come to understand for myself in a way that I did not even a week ago, I've been writing about this for weeks and months, is that, and I mean, I've read it and I've listened to it for many times, but I understand in a different way now because I've been changing really profound things about myself, including releasing trauma, is how much the body becomes accustomed to what it knows. And that's a thing called homeostasis, right? Our autonomic nervous system, that's the nervous system that processes 32.8, or was it 32.7 billion, or was it trillion? I've lost count. Two of those big numbers stacked on the end, lots of zeros. Chemical reactions every second in all of our cells. It's really amazing. It runs all of that. And where was I going with that? We have this autonomic nervous system, and every time we think, we instruct it to send signals to our cells. And man, it's amazing. I lost my thought. But our cells become accustomed to that information coming. And that is the first step of emotional addiction. So if you keep on thinking the same thought and having the same feelings and having the same emotion and having the same experiences and doing the same behaviors, like saying, well, that person, they hurt me and I'm going to keep feeling angry at them, or somehow you just keep manifesting the same experiences in your life over and over again, it's because your body, I've caught it again, your body is accustomed to that, because the autonomic nervous system runs all of those things, and whatever is normal for the autonomic nervous system is normal, and its job is to keep us at normal. And this is what we're talking about today. Because if your normal has moved, and I'll explain a bit about how that can happen, if your normal has moved and you want to change it from that abnormal normal back to something that's more really normal, your autonomic nervous system will say, this is what I know. This is familiar. This is safe. Because remember, in survival, anything that we don't know is considered a threat. And we either fight it or we flee from it or we freeze. So if we are in survival, then our body, our autonomic nervous system, our very cells are saying, no, I don't want to change. And what I experienced was, no, I don't want to feel good. It is not safe for me to feel good. I need to feel afraid, because when I feel afraid, then I'm vigilant and I'm watching for danger, and now I feel safe. And that was what my body was sending the signals to my brain over and over and over and over for about 2 days. And it was very painful, not physically, but in my brain it was hell. Because I just had to keep choosing. It wasn't that I couldn't not to listen, because those voices were there. They were really loud. The default mode networks that I talked about last week, they were screaming. But it was my body saying, you have changed normal. I am not feeling safe. I want to go back. And so that's how that works. And that's one of the reasons why change is so freaking hard. Because when we've become accustomed to a different normal and we want to have a new normal, our body is evolutionarily, genetically, biologically, hormonally, neurologically, in every way, hi Summer, programmed to keep us with what's been normal. So that's the introduction. Let me check time. Good. I've got enough time to explain this. So what I said is, do you realize that cells change depending on how we feel? And they do. And I've been explaining this. It's called, the big word is conditioning. Like Pavlov and his dogs. And the experiment that Pavlov did was he took a dog and he strapped it to a table. I don't know why he had to strap it to a table, but he did. And he fed it food, nice food, and rang a bell. And he did that over a period of time, so that the dog began to associate the ringing of the bell with food. And then one day he did the same thing, but he didn't provide any food. He just rang the bell, and the dog still got ready to eat. So the cells had got used to that. Hi, Jan! Great to see you, sweetie. The cells had just come to expect it. And that's conditioning. So at a cellular level, I've been writing about how our cells change. And how is it that we alter ourselves? By what we chronically think and feel. Because we do, every second. But it's what we chronically think and feel. The odd blow up, whatever. It happens, it has an impact. But it's what we do long term that really makes the difference. So here you have a cell, right? And in our body, and I looked this up because I thought it was about 1 million cells or 10 million cells or whatever it is every second that get replaced. But somebody in 2021 now did some new research, and they looked not only at how many cells, but which proportions of cells get replaced. And most of the cells that get replaced, that 3.8 million, they say in a 70 kilogram male, a healthy 70 kilogram male, 3.8 cells get replaced more or less every second. And 98% of those cells are blood cells and cells that line our intestines, right? Because those turn over really fast. And the other 2%
are cells from other bits of our body. And look, some of our cells last a very long time. A very long time. The myth that we turn over all of our cells in 7 years isn't true. Some cells last a lot longer than that, and some of them only last half a day. You know, I think the pancreas turns over every day. I don't know that fact exactly, but there's a real wide range of how long a cell lives. The point is that we're always turning them over, some more quickly and more often than others. Hi, April. Lovely to see you too. And so when a cell dies, it's got to be replaced, right? And your autonomic nervous system, you know, that there was the astronomical number of 32 point something, I think it's million trillion chemical reactions that happen in your body every second. Every second. Huge numbers of zeros, big number, you know. And a chunk of those are used to replace all the cells that die every second. And how they get replaced is that a healthy cell, which we're going to call a parent cell, divides. Fancy word, mitosis. I know that much. I don't know anything about how it works, except that whatever a cell has experienced during its lifetime inside our body, and remember, inside our body is like a little universe, and we control what's going on in there, whether we know it or not. Because every time we think a thought, we make a chemical which gives us a feeling, and if we have enough feelings, we'll get an emotion, and we'll have an experience, and that experience will enrich our brain, and we'll make more thoughts, and round it goes. And it also goes the other way. The body can actually yell to the brain, give me these chemicals, as I discovered over the weekend. Man, that was rugged. So when the cells divide, for example, let's say you lived a perfectly normal, ordinary, happy life for however many years, and then a year ago you got really stressed, and for a year you've been stressed. So in that time, your cells, or mine, a person's cells, become accustomed to higher levels of stress hormones, survival chemicals, than were there before. There was a baseline, and then over that year the baseline changes. And so what happens is that our cells learn. And a cell that dies, once the baseline's moved, and this is how it moves, right? A cell that dies says, there's many ways that they can change. This is called epigenetics. The environment inside our body, I mean, signals come from the outside of the environment, but it's the environment inside our body that signals the cell. So we actually have some measure of influence over the information that goes to our cells, which affects how we make new cells and how we express DNA to keep our body healthy and running. We are that powerful. It's pretty mind-blowing when you realize that every second we are having an impact on our cells and how our body is, and how we feel. So there are many ways that cells can change as they divide, but I just picked on 3 of the simple ones that I know because I've listened. And so as the cells divide, obviously the DNA is going to be used, you know, it's going to double itself up and make a new cell, but the parent cell, which is going to divide into 2 daughter cells, has the ability to pass on what it has learned from the environment that it's been living in for however long to its daughter cells. So if that parent cell, let's say it lived for 2 years, and in the second year of its 2 years, it's been bathed in stress hormones for the last 12 months. So it's not used to having that level of stress hormones, and it will have a certain number of receptors on its surface for stress hormones. Except that now there's a whole lot more of them, and so those receptors are working really hard to keep up with all the stress hormones that are to be processed to produce all the chemicals and things that help your body have the stress response. So what happens is that the cell says effectively, gee, that was really hard, you know. There's enough stress hormones out there for me to have 50 receptors on the outside for stress hormones, but I've only got receptors for 30. I'm going to change my instructions so that my daughter cells have 40 stress hormones, receptors for stress hormones. So the outside of the cell actually changes to accommodate the fact that there are more stress hormones around now. And, you know, that's fine and dandy, but what can happen then is that if the stress hormones keep coming, even that it's called upregulation, even that upregulated level of receptors might not be enough. And the receptors can get tired. They can get so tired that they lose sensitivity or they even shut down. And it has to be pretty extreme, but they can just stop working. Diabetes is a good example of receptors. Insulin resistant diabetes means that the receptors, we've got receptors for insulin on musculoskeletal muscle cells and in our lungs and I think in our blood vessels, I can't remember. And if they stop working, you can have tons of energy running around in your blood, but it's not going to get into the cell where it can be used because there's been too much sugar in the blood and the receptors have become resistant to the signal. So now you got to have, and then you have to supply insulin, or you have to change the signal in your body. You have to get the sugar to go down so that the receptors will wake up, and that's how type 2 diabetes can be reversed if you change your diet and you change your stress levels and a few other things. So the receptors have become less sensitive or resistant to whatever it is they're supposed to interact with and just doesn't work anymore. And if you make a change, they can come back. If you have upregulated the number of, for example, stress chemical receptors on your cell, so it's gone from 30 to 40, and don't quote me on these numbers, I've no idea what the numbers are, I'm just using them for examples. What happens ultimately is there's only a certain amount of space on the outside of each cell. So if you get more and more and more stress receptors, stress hormone or stress chemical receptors, something's got to go. And if you're spending a lot of time feeling unhappy, you're not spending a lot of time feeling happy. And there's a principle called use it or lose it. And so your cells, the parent cell as it divides will say, well, we need more receptors to receive all these stress hormones that are floating around. But something's got to make space for that, and we're not using these receptors for joy and happiness and peace. Well, we better have fewer of those. And that's literally what happens in our cells. So our chronic thoughts will do this to us. It's an acknowledged scientific fact. Now, I don't want to be depressing. I find this really empowering to understand. Oh my God, I have this much power. And the thing is, if you're thinking, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? Because we all have those oh my God moments. Understand that this doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It happens over a period of time. And also that if you can change how your cells are working that way, by thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling and thinking and feeling over a period of time. Hi, Wendy! Isn't there a good chance that if you think and feel and think and feel and think and feel a different feeling and a different thought and a different way of being and different behaviours and different experiences over another period of time, that you can change it back? And that's absolutely what the research that is being done is showing is possible. It really is. I'm doing it myself. For me, it's a slow process because the thing is I'm changing. I've been thinking and feeling and unconsciously default mode networking, well, I think for my entire life, and if not my entire life, most of it. Really unconscious. Can't see it, don't know it's there, don't know what it's doing to me. I do now. So this is how we literally get stuck in our negative emotions. Because we've literally lost the ability to feel something else. And that's also why it's so hard to change, because if you understand, oh, I've changed my cells and my body to be really good at feeling resentment or judgment or anything, or compassion. I've changed the cells in my body to be really good at feeling compassion. Great. You're going to do that and you'll have lots of receptors for the chemicals of compassion. So it works in either direction. It's just that because we get thrown into survival so easily, that we tend to get ourselves conditioned to those negative emotions, and we don't realize that in allowing that to happen and not making the effort to interrupt it, which is the point I wanted to make, that you're not going to just turn that off because you suddenly decide, oh, I want to choose to feel happy now. I want to stop complaining. I've been complaining for the last 20 years, but I've got to stop now. Your body is accustomed to that. It's going to fight you, not because it's your enemy, because it's running on the old information that you put in over a period of time. So it helped me to understand that even when I can't stop the screaming in my head, and I couldn't stop it over the weekend, and it was horrible, and it felt bad, and all of that, but I understood that every time I tried, every time I made an effort to think a new thought or feeling new feeling, or go against what my body was saying, oh look, just start to cry, just be angry, just be agitated, please give me any one of those three emotions. I want sadness, I want agitation, or I want anger. I don't care, but I'm addicted to those. And I understood that every time I didn't do that, I was not ringing the bell. You know, I was saying, no, I'm not going to signal the dog to get ready to eat. No. So I was saying no to my body a lot. It wasn't just the weekend, but the weekend was rugged. It really was. And I knew and I understood that that's what I was doing, and that's why it was so hard, and that helped me. It didn't make it easier. Well, it probably did actually, because if I hadn't understood what was going on, I might even have been scared. It was horrible. But I understand that at a really fundamental level, I'm changing my body, and it doesn't want to go somewhere unfamiliar. It finds that frightening, and it will do anything to go back to what it knows, which in this case was sadness and fear and agitation. That's just where it wanted to be, because it knows it. It's safe with what it knows. So this is how it works. And, you know, I'm so grateful to be explaining it like this. I'd love to know what you think. But I am out of time. I have just loved having you on. It's so super interesting. It's all right, April, I'm just finishing. You can watch the replay. And thank you for asking the question. I put all of my videos on YouTube, so I encourage you to go and find Oneness Evolving on YouTube, because you can watch the other ones. There's a lot of information. And because I'm writing this website to make this information available to people, not just people like you and me, but people in the third world who have no access to it because they don't have a credit card. They can't even subscribe to something low like my Patreon, where the information is there and there's interaction, you can ask questions and everything else. That's $5 a month. That's not much. But if you don't have a credit card, don't have a bank account, don't even have ID papers because you can't afford to buy them, you can't even buy a book to learn this stuff. So that's what God and Me is about. And I would love you to go and check me out on Patreon, or check it out on Patreon, because that's where it's happening. That's the project. That is where there are Patreon-only updates. I will admit my patrons did not get a special update last week. I was really working very hard to deal with me. And I'll put my hand up and say that. It was tough. There wasn't any time. I had that technical thing which sucked up about 6 hours, which is a lot for me. I don't have 6 hours spare in my week. So anyway, that's what happened. So check it out on YouTube. You can go back and follow the progress, because there's a lot that leads up to this whole thing of how do we get stuck in our emotions. And of course, I'm looking forward to explaining how do we get out, and then creating the exercises, because all of this is going to be illustrated. There are pictures, right? On God and Me, you'll see the pictures that my husband's starting to draw to illustrate this project, because they're not just going to be words. I want it to be pictures. I want it to be interactive. And there'll be little exercises to illustrate everything. So you read a concept and then you do something to actually have an experience of it. And ideally, you do it with a friend, because when you explain things to someone else, you can't, if you don't understand it, you can't explain it. And I tell you, I learned so much by doing this and then explaining it to you. So I have raved for long enough. Thank you for watching. I love your participation. I look forward to seeing you on God and Me. You can follow for free, or you can subscribe and support the project and get extra goodies and ask me questions. And so I will be back at the same time next week. And until then, I send you lots of love. Bye for now.